Good afternoon all. Welcome to the first day of one mega event. The session is Sustainable Transportation Roadmap. And the chair of the moderator of the session, Dr. Manoj Singh, advisor, transport, Niti Aayog, Government of India. Kindly give him a round of applause. I would like to invite Mr. Manoj to take over the session and introduce the speakers.
Good afternoon all. Welcome to this session. This is about sustainable transportation, and I would like to introduce a very distinguished panel. May I first request Mr. Claudio Diotallevi, maybe slightly mispronounced your name. He's the head of business development ITS Ericsson. Please. I'll very quickly just read 2 lines from the biog because we are running short of time. Claudio has joined Ericsson as Transportation and Logistics Director at Ericsson AB in 2014. Currently, he leads the business development for Intelligent Transportation System market segment. And previously, he was the CIO and ICT executive. He has held executive positions as the Chief Technology Officer at the Italian high-speed rail operator Italo Terror. A lot of experience. Now may I call the second speaker. Mr. Claudio is the lead speaker and he'll make a presentation. The second person to make a presentation today will be Mr. Chinmay Pandit. Chinmay is the AVP and Head of Alternate Fuel Solutions, KPIT India. KPIT is a company based in Pune. And I would like to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that KPIT won an award from ITF, International Transport Forum, last year in 2016 for the very good work that they have done in the area of electrification of vehicles. So his work is in the area of transformational innovation of Revolo, a smart green technology to market in India and abroad. Do we have Dr. Anatoly Yunitskiy? Yeah, welcome Dr. Anatoly Yunitskiy. He's the chairman of the board of CJSC SkyWay Technologies. He's a railway engineer and he's got a lot of experience in the area of railways, and he will be basically giving us his idea about sustainability from the perspective of the SkyWay technologies. He is from Belarus. Yeah. Okay. So are you the interpreter? Okay, you are the interpreter. Okay. Mechanics, polymer. So he's got a lot of experience. He seems to be a scientist as well as a railway engineer. Mr. Anuj Sharma. Mr. Anuj Sharma is probably not there, right? Okay. So Mr. Lohia, also not there. Lohia, okay. Then we have Mr. Karthick A. He is the Vice President, Bus Platform, Ashok Leyland, India. He is a technocrat from IIT Madras, comes with a rich multi-domain experience of nearly 30 years, and he's got profound technical knowledge clubbed with keen business acumen. And he has done groundbreaking projects like Captain Cab and Sunshine School Business, etc. May I also now introduce and request Ms. Sonila Metushi. She is the manager, Mobility of People and Taxis, International Road Transport Union, IRU, Belgium. Since 2014, Sonila is a policy officer in charge of matters related to passenger transport activities, that is bus, coach and taxis with the IRU, which is International Road Transport Union, which represents the interest of road freight and passenger transport operators worldwide. No, I think we've got, have we left somebody? Your list does not include Mr. Gill, right? So, and there is no biog for Mr. Gill? Okay. So Mr. Gill, Mr. Sohinder Gill, he is the CEO, SMEV India, and when he speaks, I'll request Mr. Gill to introduce himself briefly before he gives his speech and presentation. And last, or do we have anybody else? We have. Okay, in place of Ayush Lohia. Okay, in place of Mr. Ayush Lohia, we have Mr. Venugopal Rao. He is the Zonal Head Sales and Marketing, Lohia Auto. Welcome, Mr. Venugopal Rao. Also, take a minute to introduce yourself before you speak. Please come. And finally, we have Mr. Sumit Dhanuka. He is VP and Lead Private Investments, SAR Group, Family Office, India. Mr. Dhanuka has spent over a decade in the Indian financial sector across private equity, venture capital, and mergers and acquisition. And at this moment, he is looking at investments in new mobility transformational technologies. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, let's say, power-packed panel. It's an international panel. It's a diverse panel. It has many perspectives. And maybe I should, just maybe I'll take 1 or 2 minutes to introduce the topic and then go on to the keynote speaker, Mr. Claudio. And so how we'll take this panel is that in the 90 minutes or so, of which we have already taken around 10 or more minutes, I would like to request the lead speaker and the keynote speaker to confine themselves for around 10 minutes, and the panelists to confine themselves from 5 to 7 minutes to make the their intervention. And so that we've got around 20 or so minutes, or 20, 30 minutes, let's hope, around 20 minutes at least, for the floor, for all of you to ask questions. So that is what I'd like to say. Now, sustainable transportation. I had carried a UN report. The UN has come out with a report on sustainable transportation, and I intended to read from it. I will not go back and waste half a minute. Basically, what is in sustainable transportation? Sustainable transportation is a form of transportation which is obviously friendly to the environment, which is resilient in terms of, let's say, from shocks and also from peak capacity requirements. And finally, it does something for the next generation. So the whole concept of sustainability is from the fact that we should leave the planet better off than what we inherited. So there is a sense of intergenerational equity, let us call, or leaving the planet better off than what we inherited. So if we have that as the backdrop and speak from that perspective, then transportation, which, as you know, has a lot of negative externalities, which means it has negative impact on the environment, whether it is through pollution, and in the cities in India are getting more and more polluted, as you're aware, and also energy. A lot of energy is taken by transportation. And third thing is accidents. Nearly 1.25 million people get killed on roads in the world, entire world, due to road accidents. So 3 dimensions: carbon emissions, energy use, and accidents. So if we are able to give solutions to these issues, I think we would make transportation more sustainable than what it is today. So I'll request my panel to concentrate on these themes. There is a lot to say about electric mobility. That is what I've been told that many of the speakers will speak on that. Yes, electric mobility is a new dimension that is being added to it. As you know, that it will be less polluted. Obviously, ideally speaking, no pollution. Certainly that problem gets solved. But I also forgot to mention another aspect of sustainability, which is congestion. In cities, congestion is a big problem. how can congestion be also solved. These are various dimensions of transport. So let me start by calling on the first speaker, our keynote speaker, Mr. Claudio Diotallevi, Head of Business Development, ITS Ericsson. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, and good morning to the floor. I'm so proud to be today to present Ericsson vision about intelligent transport in this session, because I'm pretty much convinced about the importance of IT, the contribution of IT technology to the sustainability of transport. I will go through the different aspects and the key feature that IT and the communication technology can bring into transport to enable sustainable transport, to improve safety, to improve sustainability in terms of better use of available resources. So as Ericsson, we manage directly 1 billion mobile subscriber through our managed service operation, and over 2.5 billion installed base in our system. So we have a very precise, deep understanding about how people move, and use the transport resources. If we take a more general view about transport, the driving factor in transport today, I think that all of us agree about the importance of this key aspect. The growth in, the growth, thank you, if you can just go through for me slide by slide, that's better. The growth in volumes. Transport generates about 20% of greenhouse gases, but is bound to grow because it's really the blood and flesh of business development, of people's lives, and this volume growth can only be enabled through automation, so that autonomous vehicles that are starting to circulate in our roads and driverless trains are becoming a feature of transport nowadays. Critical communication, real-time communication is the key feature for IT to support this kind of automation, so that we can enable in transport a more efficient use of assets. Assets that can become digital, represented in the IT world, create an enormous amount of data that can be leveraged to forecast, improve, optimize transport system, so that on top of this transport economy, which will be digitally driven, we see new players and new business models starting. Next, please. So, large urbanization phenomena is typical of our era. Soon, more than half, even 70% of worldwide population will live in city, and that will create enormous pressure on urban transport. As we speak, this enormous push in the transportation need is bringing more and more vehicles into the roads, and we see that China and India are leading the growth rate in road vehicles. Next one, please. So far, transport authorities, mobility authorities have responded to such a pressure by installing more infrastructure, more sign, more enforcement technology into the roads. But is this the right answer? Are not we better off if we develop more intelligent systems that can make the transport system more coordinated and intelligent? Next one, please. At the same time, the growth in transport creates the needs for more infrastructure. Already today, about $2.5 trillion are spent worldwide in creating road, rail infrastructure, telecommunication infrastructure, airport, ports, but more infrastructure is needed. And this means that also the private sector is needed to bring funding. And we need to find ways to make business model more predictable and connected, to make a transportation market that private investor can rely on, so they can really put their money on it and collaborate with governments to create infrastructure, to create and maintain infrastructure in a more sustainable way. This creates a need to bring more intelligence and control into the transport system. Next one. So what are the key features about the technology aspect that create this possibility, that make a connected transport system possible? The main driver for Ericsson are digitalization, of course, creating a digital representation of the physical transport system allows more predictability, further optimization of the volumes, and connectivity, real-time connectivity to vehicles, to infrastructure is needed to make this digital data available. Both digitalization and connectivity enable automation, robotic automation, the application of artificial intelligence that will make the transport system more reliable, resilient to gridlocks, to disruptions. Next one. Digitalization, as you know better than me, is a representation of physical stuff into the digital world. That creates an enormous amount of data that makes it possible to create systems that delve into this plenty, rich information, to understand the pattern, to forecast the demand, to create infrastructure and make the investment precisely where it's needed. So more prioritization in investment, more predictability. Next one, please. And connectivity is needed to make digitalization possible, and now, soon, cellular networks will become able to support a wide range of use cases. All the use cases of connectivity that are needed to enable connected transport. So, not only deployment of massive IoT, sensor implementation, small simple sensor that rely on battery, but also the implementation of critical Internet of Things use cases, where you need bandwidth and reliability and very low latency to drive automatic cars, to drive trains, critical, mission critical physical implementation. Next one, please. Still, right now, Ericsson, as a primary leader in delivering cellular communication technology, is collaborating with international work groups to define the communication protocol and technology that will drive automation for vehicles in the future. Car-to-car communication, car-to-infrastructure communication will be based on a very reliable, low-latency protocol that will enable real-time communication with the transport system. Next one, please. And we see that in practice, the introduction of technology such as narrowband IoT that we have tested with China Mobile and Mobike in Shanghai. They enable the connectivity of simple vehicles like bicycle. They do not have an energy plug on it. They must rely on battery. Bikes that are available for hire must be reached in very remote places, in deep underground garages, and with new protocols and solution from cellular connectivity, this is now possible. Next slide, please. But also, ultra-high bandwidth become available, as we tested in South Korea with BMW, where we show how it's possible to connect cars running at 107, okay, I will go, and that means high availability of bandwidth. Next one, please. And platooning, realizing a virtual train on road, tracks running in a close composition that can be controlled and reduce consumption of fuel. Next one, please. We can skip this one, so I go right to the conclusion. Next one, please. Human mobility analysis, so to track the behavior of people by using network logs. Next slide, please. Another one. And we go to this example, and cloud infrastructure, intelligent system that connect vehicle and make possible to vehicle to speak to one another, and to raise alarms in case of problems on the road, safety problems like slippery road alert and hazard light. This is a cloud implementation that Ericsson supports globally for Volvo automaker. Another one, okay? And this is one last example I have. This is a very interesting case in the Netherlands. It's called Better Benutten, Better Usage. It is the strategy of the Netherlands government to put more intelligence on the infrastructure and to create a cloud system that connects all type of infrastructure sensor and make available to service provider this plenty of information and intelligence. It's a clear strategy to make the private sector collaborate with the public sector to put more intelligence into the transport system. And finally, we may recap this, saying that more infrastructure is needed, but it must be intelligent. And to make a more intelligent infrastructure and transport, we need high-performance connectivity and cloud system that can collect data, analyze data, predict, and provide more optimization to the transport system, like this offering of connected urban transport that Ericsson support for road authorities and transport authorities as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and also for responding to that gentle reminder about time. May I now request Mr. Chinmay Pandit, AVP and Head of Alternate Fuel Solutions, KPIT India, to make the presentation as a lead presenter.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Am I audible back there? Yeah? Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Singh, for the opportunity. I'm going to, my slides talk more about sustainable public transportation from an electric vehicle point of view, which is, kind of narrows down the conversation towards the cities, and more so for Indian cities and what we need to do, be it under the wider ambit of smart cities or under some of the newer things Niti Aayog is doing as well. So, challenges, right? I don't think we need to really spend too much time over challenges because we face them day in, day out, everywhere we go. But I just wanted to bring out a couple of facts which are not always known. The first graph talks about ridership. In 1994, it was 62%. This is aggregated across cities. And now it is at 17%. A staggering loss of passengers for buses. The next one is on pollution, and I think, that horse has been beaten often. The next one is about, the third one is about the import implication of diesel vehicles, and that's also something which one talks about and one worries about as well. The last one is also something I would want to spend a little time on. We have a fundamental shift which is happening in the consumers of our country. The population is now moving younger, and these are younger folks who have income of their own. So when you're looking at that as a large part of your population, you have to rethink about what it means for transporting such people. So what we really believe is necessary to make people in cities who don't use buses, people in cities who are young and don't use buses, move into public transport. And pardon me for saying buses is something we are kind of talking about more so, but frankly it's going to be an intermodal, multi-mode transit mechanism as we go forward. So what we really need to have in this sustainable solution for transportation, it needs to be clean because the pollution is just beyond reasonable levels. Second, it has to be connected because that's what the community and that's what the users are requiring. Third, it has to be comfortable because you're going to ask somebody who has either a car of his own or a bike, or somebody who takes a Ola or Uber which is AC, and ask them to get into a bus. I think it has to be comfortable. And of course, it has to be safe. There's no need to debate on the safe aspect of it. And of course, all of it has to be affordable. This is more of detail, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But when you talk about clean, you need to look at the emission. You need to look at the fossil implication. When you talk about connected, it has to be ITS, as my colleague from Ericsson talked about. Similarly, you need to make it seamless from a journey planning point of view. It has to be comfortable. I think not only does it have to be comfortable for the passengers, but one has to also factor in the drivers who are going to use these vehicles and how are they comfortable around it, and safe, of course. So let me talk a little bit about what we have been doing around electric mobility or buses per se. Our journey started about a year and a half ago when the Honorable Prime Minister of our country launched or announced the electric bus. We started working from that point of view. There are 2 buses right now which are running. They've done about 15,000 kilometers, and a lot of testing has been done there as well. We are of course working with vehicle manufacturers, and that's something which is on top of this. But we also did something very interesting. We took the bus to the national forest and said, you know what, if those are supposed to be the green lungs, can we do something there? And this is just a slide which talks about that experience. This is a tiger reserve down in Karnataka. We ran the bus for about a month and a half. The universal reaction from the passengers as well as the animals was that the vehicle is quiet. So that was something new, and that was something different which we captured out of that experience as well. What we did learn out of this experience is that you need to have a solution which will be able to respond quickly to change in the environment. A bus which runs in the parliament is not a bus which will run in Bandipur, right? So, and that scenarios are going to be a lot of them out here in India. Now, I'll also talk about China. China has about 170,000 electric buses. All over the world, you have 175,000 electric buses. So barring 5,000 buses, every bus in the world which is electric is in China. And here's what they have done. They have tried different ways of doing things. This started basically around the Olympics, which was in 2008. And they tried slow and medium charging with vehicles which have a large battery, like 300 kilometer range vehicles. They also talked about trolley buses where you have a continuous cable on top to power the vehicle and you have almost no battery inside the vehicle. They tried the battery swapping piece. They tried pantograph where the vehicle arrives into a bus stop and you have a charging infrastructure which drops down and charges in a very, very short time. And they tried opportunity charging as well. They have learned and evolved and figured out what makes sense for them. We will have to do the same thing, I believe. We'll have to look at different ways of providing electric mobility to the communities in India. I also want to talk a little bit more on the last segment there, which is opportunity charging. What we are talking about is, can we have a vehicle which has a fairly limited battery size, because that's where the biggest cost is, but have extensive running during the day's operation. And public transport undertakings like DTC or BMTC or BEST tell us people run about 200 odd kilometers, a bus runs about 200 odd kilometers in a day, which is about a 16-hour shift, 2 shifts. So we said, what's the smallest size of the most expensive part you can have to do that running? Because you can't tell DTC that, because the bus is electric, you run it less. That logic obviously will not be accepted. So we said, we looked at a scenario, we looked at a natural gas vehicle and we looked at an electric vehicle. Rivolo is the brand for our electric vehicle technology. And we said, if you're running a route which is 10 kilometers long, takes about 40 minutes given the traffic conditions. A natural gas bus you need about 12 of these natural gas buses for 16 hours to provide a service of between 5 to 10. And the timings, etc. On the electric vehicle side, you can actually get away with one less vehicle. You can have one less vehicle. You can run roughly the same amount of distance as the second last box, which is 220 kilometers on natural gas side, 212 kilometers on the electric vehicle side. And the way to provide a 120-kilometer bus a route, a running of 200, is basically what we're talking about is top-up or opportunity charging, where we are saying that you have shift changes, you have peak loads, and you have time in the day where the load is less, and you should optimize that to have a smaller battery vehicle run longer distances. Now, this is towards the end of my presentation, sir. Basically, when you look at electric buses, when you want to deploy them, there are a couple of things I wanted to share with the audience. The key factors for decision making when you are looking at deploying electric buses, I believe, are first, size of the bus, because that's obviously going to drive the cost. Now, one has to kind of take a step back and say, do you need high capacity or do you need high frequency? Because if you need high frequency, what you really want is a small bus. And naturally, the small bus means small battery, which means less cost. Second piece is route selection. I think it's extremely important to analyze, to Dr. Singh's point, the congestion levels in the routes and the pollution levels in routes, and pick up the ones which are worst and have buses run there. Less so on routes which are clean, no traffic, smooth movement. Now, if you look at high pollution and you look at high traffic, you would very soon end up in city centers, you would end up in kind of metro stations and providing last mile connectivity around those. Again, these are narrow congested areas. So it again drives to the point that we need to figure out if you need a large bus or you need a small bus there. I think the third point is on the features, and this goes back to the comfort and the audience which is coming into the buses, the passengers who are coming into the buses. We believe it needs to be AC. You will have a few cities like Shimla maybe where AC is not a requirement. Almost everywhere else in India, AC is a requirement, not only for the weather, but also for the dust. And other features like ITAS, Wi-Fi, and then can we then think about the fare which is involved behind this? Can we think about a higher premium for vehicles? Just to give an example, AC buses which run in Mumbai, they carry about a 20-25% premium compared to a regular bus. Now that's something which the market accepts. Not a 2x or a 3x multiplication, but a smaller step up or bump up in a sense. The fourth part is operations, and I can't stress enough on operations. These are very expensive assets, and one has to sweat them. To make them run the most is going to be the most important piece. Your interest cost, yes sir, just one more slide. Your interest cost is a fixed amount on these assets. If you're running them more, your kilometer shoots up, which makes it very interesting. And of course the range, because I think all of this drives to how much range do you want to provide. If the bus is running only 150 kilometers in a day instead of 200 kilometers, you may not need a 120 kilometer battery. You can actually get away with a smaller one. Last point on the slide is basically these decisions will have to be taken at a local level. You want ownership, but you also want a better understanding of where these buses are deployed. What works in Chennai will make no sense in Indore, and this is going to be an important part of the decision-making process. Last slide. Diesel buses are cheap to buy and expensive to run. Expensive to run from a rupee point of view, expensive to run from a health point of view. Electric vehicles are expensive to buy, very inexpensive to run. And this complete 180-degree toggle between the capex and opex is a very important factor all of us have to process and understand and leverage and also mitigate in places. Upfront cost, we talked about it. Cost of capital, I think we need to look at green funds, we need to look at places where we will find attractive interest cost to make electric mobility a reality. Energy is a no-brainer. Today's news talks about 2.64 rupees per unit for electricity from solar. If you factor in that kind of a cost for electric bus, things become very attractive very fast. And of course maintenance, because that's a big cost of electric or natural gas vehicles and very less so on the electric vehicle side. So that's what I had. I guess we'll take questions towards the end of the session, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Meanwhile, we are joined by Mr. Anuj Sharma, who is the chairman of the e-Rickshaw Committee, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. So I request Mr. Sharma to take his seat and very briefly introduce him. He is the chairman of e-Rickshaw Committee, Ministry of Road Transport and Highway. He is taking the vision of Indian government about the e-rickshaws ahead. He's also the General Secretary at Battery Rickshaw Welfare Association. Our next speaker, so now we move on to the panel side. Here I'll request the panelists to be brief, to the point, and take around 5 minutes or so. First, may I request Dr. Anatoly Yunitskiy, General Designer, Chairman of the Board, CJSC SkyWay Technologies, to speak.
I will help with the translation. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Next slide, please. The road network in today's India covers more than 4.5 million kilometers. Over 200,000 people die on these roads, and over 1 million are injured as a result of traffic accidents. Rolled up in asphalt and buried under railway sleepers is fertile soil, equal in its area to the territories of free countries such as Israel. On the territory 10 times larger, soils along roads are degraded and contaminated with carcinogens. If this continues, approximately 20 million people in India will have died, and about 100 million will have become handicapped with a chance of premature death by the end of the century. This number of people victims of automobiles will be comparable to the population of a large city like Moscow, for example. India is already moving in leaps and bounds towards fundamental profound changes in the social pattern of its citizens. Such large-scale programs as smart cities is a measure of foresight on the part of the Indian leadership, or the desire to build a great future for the country. At this panel, discussion is devoted to the roadmap of the strategic development of the country. I would like briefly to outline the concept of the future development, named from smart cities to a smart state, the basis for which is a network of smart linear cities built along transport communication lines of an elevated type. The proposed idea of a smart linear city is an entirely pedestrian city cluster, stretching in length of hundreds of kilometers. A cluster about 1 kilometer in diameter, a residential, industrial, educational, trade, sport or mixed one, with up to 6,000 inhabitants, will be built in the logic of accessibility for pedestrians, for example, within 500 meters from the center. In the center, there is a dominant building, a high-rise building with public establishments through which transport, power supply and information communication lines passes, the SkyWays, located at a height of 10 meters and more above the ground surface. Interchange stations to transfer from urban tracks to high-speed intercity air tracks are also placed in them. With the possibility to increase the speed even more, if we're talking about new transportation solutions. Every cluster is self-contained. It is provided with its own energy, water and food. It doesn't deprive nature of a single square meter of land. Soil from under every building is transferred to a flat roof of the building, enriched with fertile tunnels with a garden planted on it. The houses are mostly single-story, comfortable for living, and budget-friendly for a family, with an average income of a middle-class family. A garden and a vegetable patch on the house roof will be enough to feed the whole family with healthy, even healing food. Every cluster is ecologically clean and fits harmoniously into the environment in all Indian natural diversity, in the mountains and forests, on fields, islands and seashells. All its waste is transformed into specialized bioreactors and humus, fertile soil, using special microorganisms, aiding other balanced organic raw materials, including coal, shale, peat. Using its waste, for example, one person will be able to feed themselves and one more person, whereas, for example, a cow will be able to feed not only itself but also 10 more people. A network of smart linear cities covering all the territory of India, including the Himalayas and the shelf of the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, 200,000 kilometers long, will occupy the area of 200,000 square kilometers, approximately 1/16th part of the country's territory, where over 1 billion people will be able to live and work in comfortable conditions by the middle of the century. The rest of the country will turn into the nature reserves and wildlife sanctuaries, with ancient landscape restored. There will be no traffic jams, smog or traffic-related deaths in such a pedestrian linear city. It will become possible for children to run barefoot, not on asphalt but on grass, and parents will not have to worry about their life. All population will be employed, mainly in services sector, including growing of natural food for their families. The population will be healthy with plenty of food and will enjoy more free time to devote to creative activities and self-development due to a significantly shortened working day. Hundreds of millions of highly paid workplaces will be created, required due to the increased domestic demand for single-story India. As in this case, we've lived in multi-story buildings that are included in the cost of a square meter of accommodation, horizontal and not vertical elevators or lifts, SkyWays will be built in smart linear cities and will be included in the cost of residential and infrastructure building and structures. With that, the cost of 1 square meter of accommodation in such cities built in completely different natural logic will be not more expensive, but vice versa 25–30% cheaper. Horizontal lift skyways will be cheaper by 2–3 times compared to the highways, 10–15 times compared to any roads of elevated type. In terms of energy efficiency, fuel efficiency, they have no analogs and are superior to railway transport. 2–3 times to metro, 3–5 times to automobile, 7 times to maglev. The resource intensity during construction operations, repairs, metal, concrete, asphalt, earthworks operations and land acquisition will be 10 times less compared to the implementation of any other transport solutions. Skyway tracks of the second level are built for 100 years and practically do not require a maintenance. They are more resistant to natural phenomena such as earthquakes, floods, tsunami, torrential rains. Terrorism, conventional vandalism, acts of terrorism. In its essence, the future vision of a smart state proposed by the Skyway is not a transport project, but an infrastructure and development plan. Therefore, it can be entirely implemented at the cost of population of the country by creating domestic demand in all areas of economy, from agriculture and construction to machine building and electronics. The program can be implemented in stages by 2050, and we are planning to start the first stage already this year in India, state of Jharkhand. It's the construction of the taste cluster of a smart linear city. And in addition, yesterday we signed an agreement with Smart City of Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh to start the first commercial project there and show a part of the smart city there. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Very bold and visionary images that we saw there. Now may I request Mr. Anuj Sharma to give his thoughts, and may I also request you to be within the time limit of 5 minutes or so that we have prescribed for the panelists. Thank you.
मित्रों, मनुष्य का सबसे बड़ा जो आविष्कार था वो था पहिया। अगर हम आज गति की बात करते हैं तो दूर की दूरी के लिए तो हमें बहुत सारे विकल्प मिलते हैं, रेलवेज है, बसेज हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं, पर जो नज़दीक की दूरी है, लास्ट माइल कनेक्टिविटी, उसके लिए ले दे के बहुत कम चीज़ें हैं, जैसे रूरल एरिया में बैलगाड़ी या घोड़ा गाड़ी और शहरों के अंदर पैर से चलने वाला रिक्शा। दोस्तों, 125 करोड़ की पॉपुलेशन के देश के अंदर हम रहते हैं। विभिन्नताओं में एकता है। कोस कोस पर पानी बदलता है, 4 कोस पर वाणी बदलती है, भाषा बदल जाती है। 0 डिग्री से लेके 50 डिग्री तक टेम्परेचर रहता है। टेक्नोलॉजी हर जगह अलग अलग चाहिए। भारत के प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी का एक सपना था कि इस देश में पैडल रिक्शा खत्म हो जाए, जो लगभग 1 करोड़ के लगभग सरकार को लगता है कि है। इसमें बहुत सारे खेतियार मजदूर समय समय पे आके चलाते हैं और जो 12 महीने चलाते हैं वो अलग लोग हैं। इसके अलावा जो माल ढुलाई के लिए चीजें चलती हैं या खुद वो सामान उठाते हैं, इसमें भी श्रम बहुत जाता है। आदरणीय नितिन गडकरी जी इसके लिए बहुत सीरियस हैं। उन्होंने लगभग 2014 के अंदर इसके लिए एक नया कानून बनाया जो लगभग 8 अक्टूबर 2014 को बना। उसके बाद उन्होंने हमारी कमेटी फॉर्म की। हम लोग यही चाहते हैं कि जब भी कोई यात्री रेलवे बस या कहीं से आए तो अपने घर जाने के लिए लास्ट माइल कनेक्टिविटी के लिए वो किसी साधन का उपयोग करे तो वो ई रिक्शा हो। तो हमें लगता है कि इस योजना के अंतर्गत लगभग पहले फेज में 1 करोड़ ई रिक्शा सड़क पे आने चाहिए। समस्याएं थोड़ी ज्यादा थी क्योंकि ये बहुत जल्दी सड़क पे आ चुका था। लगभग 2008, 10, 12 तक ये सड़क पे आ चुका था और कानून बना 2014 में। तो इस कारण बहुत सारी ऐसी ई रिक्शा सड़क पे थी जो इनलीगल कैटेगरी में गई, जिसके कारण थोड़ा कंफ्यूजन पैदा हुआ। दोस्तों, लगभग सभी प्रदेशों के अंदर इसके कानून के अंतर्गत रजिस्ट्रेशन शुरू हो चुका है। लगभग इसके चलाने वाले लोगों के ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस बनने शुरू हो चुके हैं। हम लोग जब टेक्नोलॉजी या स्मार्ट सिटी की बात करते हैं तो रोजगार की भी बात करते हैं। और अगर प्रधानमंत्री मुद्रा बैंक योजना में 5.5 करोड़ लोगों को रोजगार देने की प्रधानमंत्री बात करते हैं तो उसमें पहले फेज में 1 करोड़ लोग तो सिर्फ यही हैं। आपको पता है कि अगर 1 करोड़ गाड़ी सड़क पे ऐसी आएंगी तो कितना पॉल्यूशन बचेगा, कितने लोगों को रोजगार मिलेगा, लोग जल्दी से घर पहुंचेंगे, पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट सिस्टम को उपयोग करेंगे क्योंकि वहां तक जाने के लिए भी साधन नहीं है। बहुत सारे शहरों के अंदर अगर आपको मेट्रो या बस अड्डे तक या रेलवे स्टेशन तक जाना पड़ता है तो ऑटो मिलता है, और ऑटो लंबी दूरी के लिए तो बहुत अच्छा है क्योंकि हाई स्पीड है, पर ये लो स्पीड व्हीकल छोटी दूरी के लिए बहुत उपयुक्त है। मैं पिछले वर्ष भी स्मार्ट सिटी की एग्जीबिशन में आया था। बहुत सारे लोगों से मिलना हुआ कि साइकिल, बाइक, 3 व्हीलर या ई रिक्शा प्लस 4 व्हीलर्स, इन सब पे बातचीत हुई। पर इस साल मुझे लगता है कि बहुत सीरियस तरीके से इस मुहिम को आगे बढ़ावा मिला इस देश के अंदर, क्योंकि हमारे देश के बाहर के बहुत सारे मित्र भी हमारे साथ यहाँ पर हैं जिनके पास बहुत एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजीज हैं और जिसका उपयोग हमारे यहाँ के लोग कर सकते हैं, जिसके कारण बहुत सारा समय बच सकता है। दोस्तों, थोड़ा सा समय इसमें लगेगा, पर ई रिक्शा एक बैकबोन की तरह देश के अंदर खड़ा होगा और जिसके अंदर चलाने वाले का तो रोजगार होगा, बनाने वाले का होगा, उसके पार्ट्स, टायर, बैटरीज और उसको रिपेयर करने वाले, बेचने वाले, इन लोगों का भी बहुत बड़ा रोजगार खड़ा होगा। मुझे लगता है कि इसकी कल्पना के बिना स्मार्ट सिटीज या अर्बन के अंदर सोचना बड़ा मुश्किल है। और रूरल में अगर हम किसानों की बात करें या माल ढुलाई या इसकी बात करें तो जो ई लोडर्स हैं उसके बिना चलना बड़ा मुश्किल है। मैं अब ज़्यादा बात नहीं करूंगा क्योंकि समय बड़ा कम है। सभी लोगों की बेल पहले बजी थी, मैं बेल से पहले ही अपनी बात खत्म करता हूँ। थैंक यू। किसी को कुछ भी इसके बारे में जानकारी चाहिए हो मेरे से अलग से मिल सकते हैं। थैंक यू लॉट।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद शर्मा जी। After this, may I request Mr. Venugopal Rao from Lohia Auto to give his thoughts.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure that I got an opportunity to share this dais with all big time professionals also and also the experts in the industries. Myself Venugopal Rao, I head the sales and corporate sales of Lohia Auto. Basically, we are the founder members along with the other 18 companies who are manufacturing electric rickshaws, electric two-wheelers, who are the founder members of Society of Manufacturers of Electric Vehicle Association. On the same forum in the last year, I was one of the speakers, and certain things which I spoke, still it is in process only. The biggest gap, biggest understanding which we need to make it clear is, currently India is standing in a seeding stage of electric mobility. The seeding stage which we are talking about is, after having about 8 years of working experience of manufacturing and selling of electric two-wheelers in India, and which is still in the beginning only. Currently, if you see the fuel-run vehicles of two-wheeler or fuel-run vehicles of cars, the numbers what we sell, the numbers what we sell in electric segment is bare minimum. The reason being that most of the government officials, bureaucrats, or even the professionals who are look at the self mode of transportation is not being educated or not being understood of electric basic mobility, for which I believe that we must look at how to make this as a difference to the end users. Going forward, we might be looking at developing like China, developing like America, developing like any country, but at a current status, as Sharma ji rightly mentioned, the ground level reality where we need to look at is the transportation of a self for the people around in the rural and urban areas still is a big problem. In average, if you look at three-wheeler passengers, in a normal approved way of 3-passenger vehicle, it is being used for the 15 to 20 people in the rural areas, in spite of having all the facilities. Even on the Delhi roads and NCR roads, you will find all the vehicles going with the 20 passengers in one vehicle, and having a lot of pollution over there. So, as a manufacturer of electric vehicles, we have a clarity here is that the development can start from somewhere where it is supported well from the local authorities. And the major issue here is the approval authorities which are taking the time for developing this segment, which needs to be improved, it needs to be worked upon, so that the basic electric mobility as a smart transportation can start at least now. Then we can look at how we can take the technology forward and how we can implement the best technology to come out with the best of the products available for Indian people to travel as a commuters, as a commuting. And a few of the governments in India, we are getting very good support, particularly state governments. For example, if you take it Gujarat, state of Gujarat, they are developing electric mobility by announcing a scheme for the young kids, that is 9th class to 12th standard. They tried for first year, last year in Gandhinagar, one location, and now they have announced it for entire state, all smart cities. All the kids between 9th to 12th standard, they should use only electric mobility, that is of electric two-wheelers. And a few of our smart cities, they are very clear on implementing of electric mobility through the electric rickshaws, which are primarily using the normal power, and it can be used as a self-transportation and also last mile connectivity. So in this process, we as a members of Electric Vehicle Manufacturing Association, we would like to have a clear-cut dimensions, clear-cut directions from the government authorities on various aspects. Like Sharma ji mentioned, the illegal rickshaws, still they are coming. The tax structure for the illegal rickshaw to come in India as a part, as a bits and pieces of the parts, is 29% tax, whereas the rickshaw what we are making here is not even looked at here. So that is one area. And second thing, important thing here is, 1 minute, the facilitation to the end users who wanted to buy electric vehicles is still in the stage of making to understand. Like national banks or in the NBFCs, they don't recognize this as a product for the funding also. So end user like a rural customer, rural three-wheeler customers cannot own these kind of products. So thank you for giving an opportunity to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Venugopal Rao. May I now request Mr. Karthick A, Vice President Bus Platform, Ashok Leyland, India.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think Chinmay covered quite a lot of the points with very good perspective. I'm going to limit myself to the bus EV because that's what I know, and specifically in the context of the couple of schemes that are happening in the government, so that we avoid taking a macro view any further. I think right now I'll kind of stick to the agenda given, gives us a context. The first one which we've been asked to talk about is policies, and I must commend the current central government. The political leadership has been extremely bold. There are some people who are calling them hasty, but extremely bold decision, and that is in the process of percolating, not fast enough, to the administrative leadership. It's very clear that we are in the seeding phase. We are experimenting, we are piloting, we are trying to find out. This is not the time when you want to be accurate and accountable and you're pulled up for an audit by CVC or something. We need the space for the bureaucrats to actually enable the experimentation. Right now, that policy in the political circle is yet to percolate into the administrative circle. It finally becomes a tender, and who's going to be accountable for this? You're doing the order to test. So I think failure is part of the thing. So as Chinmay presented, there are quite a few concepts. All of them have worked. All of them have failures as well. Now it's the context, and once again Chinmay pointed out that it's best that the decisions are taken at the local level. So I think the administrative and implementation mechanism, converting the policy and intent at the top level, I think that's not getting conveyed yet, and it's resulting in various kind of complications. It's still not started off for buses. We've been talking about it for about 6 years, and very actively for 2 years. And the people we deal with, we know that they are bright enough to actually close the whole topic in 3 months. It's just that there are far too many old demons there which are working in our minds. I think this, if there can be a policy exemption where the government clearly states that this is experimental phase and your typical CVC provisions would not be applicable and these would be the revised norms, I think they'll get much more space. That's one. On the market trends, it's coming across quite clearly. Once again, Chinmay pointed out that we need to target the moneyed youngsters. And by youngsters, people who are 50-year-olds, we call 30-year-olds youngsters. So these guys have money to throw, but they expect a comfortable ride, they expect an air-conditioned bus. They may not need an absolutely fancy bus, but these are basics. And if we don't target this, you're not going to see that 17% go up back to 60%, however much you spend on infrastructure on buses. So we have to conceive the product in a very simple manner, innovative, in the context of India, and once again commendably whatever the Power Ministry is conceiving for air-conditioned buses, swappable buses, very bold, very, very innovative concepts. The trick is in watching it for the next 8 months and see how it gets diluted or stopped in the administrative phase. But the concepts are brilliant and very India-specific and extremely to context. So we need to see how that pans out, but I think it helps to keep the product simple and not really make it very fancy. The market trend is looking for comfort and not necessarily fashion. Next one, understanding EV users. I'll not talk about the consumers, but the EV users. It's going to be the state transport units. Now these guys have heavy ticketing pressures from the local government. They cannot revise prices. They're strapped for cash. They do not have money. Whether for it's capex or revex, they simply don't have money. So we need to see how to break this. There are two hurdles the STUs face today. One is in terms of the money that they have either upfront or in Revex account. The second one is actually information. They are terrified of electric buses. It's dark, it's unknown, it's mysterious, and their response is, can you do everything so that we just have to send a paper out in your favor? So we need a lot of series of workshops to be conducted for these people, where the central government, which seems to be well equipped with information, we conduct workshops so that the STUs are able to understand this product, their usage, the risks involved, what they have to. A lot of them have just realized that after EVs come, they will need chief electrical engineers and no longer chief mechanical engineers. So this is something which needs to percolate. They are proactive, but they need a lot of help here. And to wind up, I think at a policy level, once again, it will help if there's a government policy which declares the evaluated cost of electric public transportation. Right now, it's just direct energy cost versus capex and revex. There are other areas where the government saves money, either at a state level or at a central level. One is the load factor and the load balancing, which helps you make money in the power ministry. The second is the health cost, which you will definitely see in Delhi, if not in other places. You save a lot of money there. And the last one is the energy security. We have to learn to somehow articulate this as policy and monetize it, so that when the STU or somebody does a payback, they're able to actually monetize it and bring it into their calculations. It will help the whole affair. I think we'll leave it at this and look forward to further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karthick. And now may I request Ms. Sonila Metushi, Manager Mobility of People and Taxis, International Road Transport Union, Belgium, to make her comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manoj Singh. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for the International Road Transport Union and for me, as IRU Manager Mobility of People and Taxis, to be part of this panel discussion. With 90% of the population growth expected in cities, the challenge of urbanization poses critical questions to mobility globally. Electromobility, automation, mobility as a service, these trends are already shaping the way both businesses and individuals are approaching mobility and transport as a whole. As IRU, we strongly believe that the solutions lie with collective passenger transport, including buses and coaches, which have the potential to offer the safest, most affordable and greenest mode of transport. For this reason, strategic investments are needed and are critical in collective passenger transport infrastructure. In 2015, member states of the United Nations agreed on a global vision for sustainable mobility by the adoption of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The very same year, the international community adopted the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Changes in the movement of people are key in achieving and ensuring the success of these international objectives and commitments. It is therefore in the public interest to place collective passenger transport at the very heart of policy making at national, state and local level. Setting clear policy and business targets to improve the use of collective passenger transport will facilitate the development and the creation of an enabling environment. Back in 2009, IRU launched a global campaign, Smart Move, to raise awareness and to promote the use of collective passenger transport. We made some calculations at the European Union level, starting with the European Union. These calculations showed us that by only doubling the uses of buses, That would result in 40 million tons less CO2, in 1,500 less road fatalities, and in 10% less road traffic per year, and with 3 million more sustainable jobs. And this is very much directly linked with the framework that our moderator set at the beginning of this discussion. A paradigm shift is needed from an inefficient, private vehicle-centric mobility system to a collective mobility system with people and not vehicles, be it autonomous, be it electric, at its heart and at its center. Commercial road transport operators, as I mentioned in the very beginning, as IRU, we represent globally commercial road transport operators. Operators have a vested interest in reducing costs, including fuel consumption costs, and in continuously seeking ways in optimizing their operational efficiency, with the aim then to use these savings to further and develop their businesses. Targeted incentives for the adoption of alternative fuel transport, including electric vehicles, to commercial fleets will give significantly higher environmental benefits than the same incentives targeting private vehicles. Part of our campaign, we are launching public-private group of stakeholders in different regions, starting with the European Union back in 2009, and we did the same exercise in the Indian context with the All India Smart Move high-level group, having around the table key stakeholders such as KPIT and Niti Aayog to put forward a set of policy recommendations on how actually to achieve this vision of sustainable transport. I very much look forward to the discussions with the colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sonila Metushi. And may I now request Mr. Sohinder Gill of Hero Group to give his comments.
Thank you, Dr. Manoj. And I have the privilege of introducing myself, so I'll take 30 seconds extra. Sohinder Gill, I have been in Hero in the electric vehicle division for the last 8 years, and also simultaneously heading the Association of Electric Vehicles for the last 7 years. So all these years we have been into electric all the way into two-wheelers. As far as company is concerned, we have put in more than 300,000 electric two-wheelers on the road by now. We have 350 dealers across India. We are present everywhere. But sadly, we are just less than 1% of the total two-wheeler population or otherwise per year. And what we make in 1 year, my sister company, Hero Honda, makes in 4 hours. That's where we are today. Despite the product being available, despite everything being in place in the last few years at least, the volumes are not picking up, and I will give you two perspectives of that. Now, for the individual customer, what does it make sense to have a two-wheeler? I call two-wheelers as a younger brother of e-Rickshaw, and e-Rickshaw have already mushroomed all over India without a subsidy. It's subsidy agnostic product. But two-wheelers, even with the prop, have not really done well. Why? Now, before that, let me give you an equation. A two-wheeler, typical electric two-wheeler, is compared to a petrol two-wheeler, and if you are consuming on a petrol two-wheeler 1 liter of a petrol a day, and for say 5 years, you will be consuming something like 1 lakh worth of petrol, right? And if you have a lithium battery electric two-wheeler of equal performance, you will have that 5 years of petrol already pre-filled with you when you buy it at 85,000 rupees. So you're buying a product at less than petrol two-wheeler on a 5 years total cost of ownership. In addition to that, there is a maintenance part of it, which is no wear and tear, no engine, Nothing to really do on the two-wheeler except the running motor, which is not like a ceiling fan motor, nothing happens to it. So you're going from home to home, you're not going home to a service station or a petrol station and coming back. So comfort, convenience, economies, all there. And on ecology, a typical two-wheeler would save or reduce around a ton of greenhouse gases over a 3 years period, which is equal to a good sized tree that you're planting. So both on the ecology or economy, it makes ample sense. But yet what? The sticker shock, the 85,000 rupees or 90,000 rupees is there. And a new technology, what is this thing? I don't know. Why should I settle for it? I'll go for my Activa, or I'll go for my Honda, or I'll go for that, because there are millions of them on the road. So that's where the catch lies. The people who walk in, they are not yet convinced whether this really makes sense. And this is an ideal solution for a last mile connectivity along with an e-Rick. Because you can't have 100% public transportation for a last mile connectivity. You have to juxtapose along with the personal transport medium, which is an ideal two-wheeler, and an e-Rick that Mr. Sharma has been talking about. So what's really needed as such? Simply 2 or 3 things which we have been advocating, and some of them have already been happening. See, when you are nurturing a young sapling or a tree, or you have a young pet, a small dog or a cat in a house, the amount of attention that you are delivering or giving to it is mammoth. It is disproportionate, and as it grows, you withdraw that. The electric two-wheelers category is there for the last 8 years. It is not being nurtured really. In other terms, what you need really is a disproportionate front loading of whatever you want to do, whether it is subsidy or an incentive or reducing the sticker shock or infrastructure or anything that needs an intervention has to be front loaded, which means the first 1 million two-wheeler have to somehow be put on the road or in a concentrated manner. After you do that and you accelerate the withdrawal of subsidy, the usability will speak for itself. The total cost of ownership will come into play. People will talk, oh, here is a good vehicle. But there are no talkers today. Partially because it was full of lead technology, because everybody tried to come out with a cheap two-wheeler. Even we have a two-wheeler which is selling at 19,900 in Delhi, which is with the battery of a lead battery. So as cheap as 19,900 to 85,000, but predominantly people want to buy that 19,900 and want to take the juice out of it is not possible. So now is the time when we believe that what we really need is whatever kitty we have of the government exchequer or whatever policy interventions we want to do, we have to somehow disproportionately do something about it so that the first 1 million or two-wheelers like e-Ricks do come as the visibility improves, and in the end we have a word of mouth, positive word of mouth. A bit of mandating on the other side. For example, my guess is that there are more than 1 million or 1.5 million electric motorcycles in the commercial deliveries like Amazon, Flipkart, etc. They can be simply mandated to convert their fleet as 25% of the fleet every year for the next 4 years to electric. Even that will improve the visibility. So a bit of cajoling, bit of mandating and incentivizing or infrastructure is going to really make a big difference for India in electric mobility. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we have the last panelist, unless I have missed out anyone. No, I'm sure. So that's Mr. Sumit Dhanuka, VP and Lead Private Investments, SAR Group Family Office, India.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh, for a kind introduction. I think, we have heard a lot over the last 45 minutes on, the mobility direction, particularly electric mobility direction in the light of sustainable transport across buses, across two-wheelers, across three-wheelers. I'll quickly give you a brief introduction of ourselves, and then I'll share some perspectives around how, as a strategic investor, we have been looking at electric mobility as a direction for investments. So SAR Group is the founder group of Luminous Inverters and Batteries, a profound consumer brand in the country. After having started Luminous 25 years back, the group has gone ahead and created a pan-India sales and distribution network. And we exited from Luminous to Schneider almost 5 years back, after which we have been building new businesses in air, water, energy storage, and electric mobility. With respect to the thought which we have with respect to electric mobility. I think, as some of our earlier speakers alluded, I think there is a massive government push which is pretty positive and bold, which is pretty opportune from the perspective of new age businesses to take this up as as a possibility for a new business to come upon and create value. What we have been seeing is the time is opportune, particularly from the perspective of the market readiness, the technology adoption, and the way our aggregators in Uber and Ola have shown direction on, an unmet need which required air-conditioned vehicle to come out right outside your home and office and take you to where you want to at a price which was unthought of. As in, business models are still being tested. I'm not going into that, but an unmet need which found an opportune business model to go out and execute. In a similar light, we see the sensitivity to environment and the entire context of how air pollution is becoming sensitized to one and all, which leads to a natural adoption, positive adoption move from a electric mobility standpoint. And the third and final piece is availability of capital. There is abundant risk capital today available both domestically and globally for a market like India, where one is looking to create alternatives to fossil fuels when it comes to mobility. So I think from a timing perspective, we are very bullish on the entire space, and we are seeing two directions in terms of participation strategically. One direction is the direction of product innovation or technology innovation, which is at the core of developing new products and technologies in the e-mobility space. And in that horizon, we are talking about the entire design side of things on two-wheelers and three-wheelers, even four-wheelers, on vehicle design. We are looking at energy storage and battery technology innovations across lithium, advanced lead acid, and even alternative chemistries. We are also looking at battery management systems as innovations in BMS, which possibly, according to us, is pretty underestimated today on the kind of impact which it can make for the efficiency of the fuel and the outcomes from vehicles. And we are also looking at hybrids as an alternative, the way we have CNG today. Similarly, we look at hybrids also being an option beyond fully electric situations. So that is one side of it. So therefore, there is an interesting opportunity coming about on the product and technology innovation and direction of mass manufacturing around it, with business model innovation, which is the second piece, which are more service-driven business models. So on the business model fronts, we are looking at some very interesting possibilities aligned to the vision which Niti Aayog has on the battery swap. So incidentally, we started our trials on battery swap almost a year and a half back through one of our investments in Varanasi, where Sharma ji had alluded to electric rickshaws. So an entrepreneur who is converting manual rickshaws into a manual rickshaw guy remains in a lease rental model throughout his life, and this guy picked up the cause of converting them into owners, and now after converting 4,000 such guys from lease to owners, now he's seeing a natural transition for these manual rickshaw guys to move to electric rickshaws. So, we are on with trials with them on battery as a service as a business model. And similarly, we look at various multiple business model ideas around parking, because we sometimes possibly miss out on the kind of cost it takes for a vehicle to be on road. The real estate cost per se remains notional and possibly not visibly tangible. So that is one more offshoot. I'll just close with two more thoughts. One thought is that for the success of this entire mobility direction, I think the way we see it is it requires a multi-stakeholder participation, which is a combination of the OEMs of electric vehicles, OEMs of batteries, the infrastructure of charge infrastructure, participation of utilities, for the charge mechanism to work efficiently and cost effectively, and the financiers, both risk capital and even for business model facilitation on capex to opex. So a robust financial ecosystem to sort of make this happen in a real-time context. The final thought on how we are looking at engaging with early stage companies in the space, the way we see it is it's a natural combination of experience which comes in from a business group which which has been in business both across manufacturing and markets and after sales for long, with a combination of the passion and entrepreneurialism with innovation coming in from the early stage companies. So I think we are looking at creating collaborative value where we combine these two strengths and create value, and definitely we can't undermine the participation of government. So in a PPP play where we have the entrepreneur, a strategic partner and government combining together for value creation and sustainability transportation. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thanks for a patient hearing.
Thank you so much. We have really run the course of the time. We do not have, but you have been a fabulous audience. I'll be really missing in my duty if I don't give an opportunity for one or maybe two questions at most, because I don't know how the organizers, yeah? Okay. So how much time do you have? Okay. So thanks to the organizers, we have been given an extension of 10 minutes. Now I'll throw open the forum to the audience. Please raise your hands and introduce yourself. Yeah, the first person, yeah, at the end, you raised the hand first. So yeah, be very brief. It's a very limited time slot. Very brief, and just say your name and the question is addressed to whom. Just be precise about this.
My name is Ravi, and my question is addressed to Mr. Sharma. My question is, most of these e-rickshaws are based on lead-acid technology of batteries. Does lithium-ion batteries figure into the scheme of things from your perspective and from government perspective?
Okay.
For example, all the chargers that these guys have are designed for lithium, lead-acid batteries and things like that.
Okay, yeah, good question.
देखिए, ऐसा है कि हमारे जितने भी रिक्शा पुलर हैं, उनको जो हम समझाएंगे, जो उनको दिखाएंगे, जो दिखता है वो बिकता है। अभी तक आप टेक्नोलॉजी के हिसाब से अगर सोचें तो ऑटोमोटिव जो लेड एसिड बैटरीज हैं, उसी के ऊपर सारा बिजनेस चल रहा है। कुछ कंपनीज थी, 4-5 कंपनीज थी जो ट्यूबुलर बैटरीज इसमें लेके आई, क्योंकि उनके साइकिल्स उससे डबल थे। और उसमें दिक्कत ये रही कि बहुत सारी जगह देश के अंदर बिजली के अंदर पूरी वोल्टेज नहीं आती है, ड्रॉपेज होती है इलेक्ट्रिसिटी। 180 पे भी बहुत कम चलती है, आपको पता ही है। हम अपने देश में बैठे हैं, हम बात कर सकते हैं। तो ज़्यादा परफॉर्मेंस उसकी अच्छी रही नहीं, फिर रिप्लेस होकर दोबारा वो जो ऑटोमोटिव लेड एसिड बैटरीज थी उसके ऊपर चले गए, क्योंकि उसकी प्लेटें पतली होती हैं। आप सब समझते हैं, आप टेक्निकल लोग हैं। हम यहाँ बैठ के 10 मिनट से यही बात कर रहे हैं कि लिथियम आयन ज़्यादा बेहतर होगी या लेड कार्बन बढ़िया होगी या लेड एसिड बढ़िया होगी। अगर लिथियम आयन के ऊपर हम जाते हैं तो हमें सिर्फ 2 ही चीज़ें हिंदुस्तान के अंदर चाहिए। हमारा टेम्परेचर लगभग 47-50 डिग्री तक जाता है देश के अंदर, मध्य भारत में जो काउ बेल्ट है, बीच का जो हिस्सा है, आपको पता ही है कि कितनी गर्मी पड़ती है। तो वो जो बैटरीज हैं वो गर्मी सहन करनी चाहिए। अभी जो भी कंपनीज यहाँ आई हैं वो टेलीकम्युनिकेशन में एयर कंडीशन के अंदर उनकी बैटरीज रहती हैं, टावर पे लगा है, एसी लगा है, अलमारी के अंदर लिथियम आयन बैटरी पड़ी हैं। पर अगर उनके पास टेक्नोलॉजी है, अगर वो इतनी गर्मी सहन कर सकती हैं, तो हम लोग उसके लिए फाइनेंस भी लेके आ सकते हैं, क्योंकि अभी तक तो जो व्हीकल्स के लिए फाइनेंस आ रहा है वो बैटरीज के लिए नहीं आ रहा है। तो अगर कुछ ऐसी कंपनीज आप में से आएंगी जो उसके अंदर ज़्यादा गर्मी को सहन कर सके। एक दूसरा उसके साइकिल्स के ऊपर बात है, क्योंकि बात करते हैं हम 3000 साइकिल्स की, पर बैटरीज जोन सी हैं वो परफॉर्म करती हैं 1200-1500, और इतने में तो लेड कार्बन 1000 साइकिल्स पे मिल जाता है जिसकी कीमत आधी है, और वो भी लगभग 50 एम्पियर पे चार्ज हो रहा है, वो भी 50 एम्पियर पे चार्ज हो रहा है। चार्जिंग टाइम लगभग 1.5 से 2 घंटा है। तो बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं, अगर आप लोग बेहतर करेंगे तो हम लोग फाइनेंस मैनेज कर लेंगे। दूसरा सब्सिडी उसको भी मिलेगी, उसको भी मिलेगी। कुछ और इसमें अगर सवाल निकलता है आप कर सकते हैं। Okay, my name is Vikram, and just an addition to this question. Lithium-ion batteries are available, which can operate up to 50 degrees. However, lead-acid battery is a very big pollutant. आपने कहा कि pollution बचाना है. आप pollution एक तरफ से बचा रहे हैं, दूसरी तरफ से आप जमीन को जहरीला कर रहे हैं. lead-acid battery जो है, वो properly recycle नहीं होती, आप भी जानते हैं और सब लोग जानते हैं. जहाँ पे वो एसिड फेंकते हैं, वो पानी ग्राउंड वाटर में, वो लेड एसिड जो ग्राउंड वाटर में लीच करता है. तो एक तरफ से तो आप पोल्यूशन बचा रहे हैं और एक तरफ से जमीन को जहरीला कर रहे हैं. इसके बारे में आप क्या करें? देखिए, फिर मैं वही बात कहूँगा, अपने देश में बैठे हैं, लोगों पे खाने को नहीं है, गांव में बिजली नहीं है, टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं है. आप दूसरे मुल्कों से टेक्नोलॉजी लेके अपने आप को डेवलप कर रहे हैं. आप अगर पोर्ट पे जाएंगे, आप देखेंगे कि आपकी खुद लिथियम-आयन बैटरी के सेल कहाँ से आ रहे हैं, कितने लोगों ने यहाँ पर उसके प्लांट लगाए हैं. बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं. अगर आप अकेले में मिलेंगे तो मैं बहुत सारी चीज़ें बता दूंगा. यहाँ बाहर के लोग भी बैठे हैं. तो राइट, ओके, या ओके.
Hi, myself Karthick from MP Group Pune. My question is to Mr. Lohia, Mr. Gill and Mr. Chinmay. We are talking, even government is talking about sustainable transport. For urban modernization, we all are thinking. Now what we are doing, what government had did, they have reformed the transport from diesel to CNG, now CNG to hybrid, now hybrid to electrification. Now there are 27 private operators in major cities operating city bus services. There are 9 operators, major operators in Delhi itself. Now my question is this, whether these electric buses are feasible economically or commercial viable. Why? Because there are 3 factors. Once any individual is going for purchasing car, he sees 2 factors, that is economic viable.
No, your question is very clear.
I'm coming,
No,
sir.
let's because you have addressed to 3 people, let them answer. Your question is about economic viability, right? Whether these buses are economically viable, are they commercially feasible?
Sir, I want to include only 1 minute.
Be precise in your question. Kindly give others opportunity.
Okay. I am concentrating on one question only. There are only 3 factors. That is.
We know the factors.
Okay,
please don't answer the.
Why? Because till now, from diesel to CNG, private operators are purchasing and operating. Why private operators are not choosing these electric buses? Till now, only 2 electric buses are operating in one city.
Your question is very clear. Please sit down. Yes, please take a seat. Chinmay, can you? Sure. The question is that why are the buses not being taken by commercial operators?
No, it's a chicken and egg situation, right? The buses in many places are still under development, and naturally there is a conservative or a risk, the risk appetite is limited for something new, especially given the changes which have been seen by operators. If the contracts were for diesel, then suddenly it's CNG, now it's something new. So there's a little bit of a wait and watch which is happening. I believe at scale and sooner than later, electric buses will cost less than diesel buses to operate. Now naturally the important factor there is the fact that you need to have viable funding source, not free funding but viable funding source to ensure that you are able to stay in the game long enough. And I think what Niti Aayog is doing and other ministries are also working on is to help kind of bridge the gap. But I strongly believe that in the next 1 year, if not in the next 18 months, we'll definitely see electric buses coming out.
Okay. Anybody else wants to supplement?
Sir, experts, good afternoon. This is Gill from Narada. We are the Chinese company based on lead acid, lead carbon, and lithium battery technologies. But since we have already worked more than 10 years in Indian market, so Narada focus more on the advanced technology like the lithium and
what is your question? Please do not.
My question is like
promote
this.
Your company. Ask your question.
Does the government will develop have the several generation, like the first generation will be focused on the lead carbon battery technology or the lithium battery? Because since the lithium battery is to some extent is a high expense and initial cost will be high. So will the government support immediately for the lithium battery solution or maybe the lead carbon? Because the lead carbon VIL is different from the flood batteries. It's maintenance free and fast charger. So my question is very clear that will government support lead carbon battery or the lithium battery?
Okay, thank you for the question. At the moment, the government supports electric mobility, and not in a very. I know the Chinese example is that the Chinese government supports to the extent of $8 billion per annum, which is 50,000 crores per annum. In India, the scheme that we run is hardly 300 crores, which is around $6 million or so, $5 million maybe. Okay, so very small component of subsidy that we are giving, and at the moment there is no differentiation in that respect. But as we evolve and more technologies evolve, probably our scheme will evolve accordingly. Okay, thank you. So now I really have to close this session because the organizers have really have told that the next session is on actually from 3:45 or so. So thank you so much. You have unless you can't live without asking the question. So if it's so pressing, yeah, okay, go ahead. Yeah, please. But just stand up and say your question. Forget the mic.
Okay. So basically, electric mobility is something which we are promoting, obviously, because of the greener and solution, blah blah. We are not talking about the infrastructure at all. So the disadvantages of the electric mobility, which we are currently not, which are not enabling us to go to on complete electric mobility. What are your opinions? Basically, I wanted to ask this question to Chinmay and Mr. Gill. About hybrid, is hybrid more feasible and contemporary solution for the current Indian scenario?
Okay, good question. Is hybrid not full electric the answer? Yeah, Mr. Gill?
Well, I agree to an extent that hybrid is an answer, but depends on the class of vehicles. For example, for smaller vehicles, A-class cars, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, hybrid is not the answer. And that's the maximum population that we are talking of. But for mid-size cars, high-size cars, and to a certain extent small buses, hybrid could be the answer. But if country can leapfrog directly to electric, great. And infrastructure obviously will come in and it will be investment oriented, it will be good for the country. And if it is solar driven, it will be all the more good. So I think we are looking forward to leapfrogging here, and it is the right step we are taking.
Thank you. So we close the session. A big round of applause for a very good panel, and for you as well for a very good audience. So the last bit of responsibility for me is to probably present mementos on behalf of the organizers.
So now I would like to request Dr. Manoj to hand over the mementos. Mr. Claudio Diotallevi. Mr. Chinmay Pandit. Dr. Anatoly Yunitskiy. Mr. Anuj Sharma. Mr. Venugopal Rao. Mr. Karthick. Mr. Sohinder Gill. Miss Sonila Metushi. Mr. Sumit Dhanuka. Now I would like to call Mr. Deepak Gupta to felicitate Dr. Manoj Singh on behalf of Exhibitions India Group. Deepak. Thank you, audience.